What people don't understand about social media is that it's just another avenue of communication.
It's about getting the word out to promote a department or an agency. It's about using it during the course of many, if not all, investigations. And it's also very critical for officers and deputies to understand that they need to protect themselves.
Certain networks, certain types of social media may come and go, but social media overall isn't going anywhere.
The goal of this training program is to provide an overview of social media, how it can be used to communicate with the public, how it can be used in investigations, and the potential dangers to peace officers when using social media. I'm Mark Bailey, and I'll be your host for this training. We will answer questions like, is social media safe? What about my family? Should I avoid it? Can it affect my career? And how can I use it to my advantage?
In the years that I've been in law enforcement, things have changed so dramatically in a short time, in my experience. Wheel guns to semi-automatic handguns, having no portable radio to utilizing portable radios, computers in our patrol cars.
All these devices, electronic, help us to retrieve information, and how fast we get it makes a determination as to how good we are in the jobs that we do.
It's a technology that is ever increasing. We're never going to get away from it. We have to learn how to use it. We have to apply ourselves like we would with any new technology, learn how to use it in our course of business.
The term social media refers to the use of web-based and mobile technologies that turn communication into an interactive dialogue. It allows users to create their own content and interact with each other. Today, we have video sharing sites like YouTube, social networks like Facebook, and microblogging services like Twitter. Of course, social media evolves. These websites may change. By the time you view this training, they will have changed. But social media is here to stay, and it has substantially changed the way we communicate with other people, organizations, and communities.
Hey, so what'd you do last night?
Not much. Me and a couple of guys went down to Old Town and had some dinner. That was it.
Oh, really? I was actually down there a week ago. Saw a lot of graffiti. I actually put one of the taggers' names in, Googled it, and I got some hits on Facebook and Twitter.
Really? You were able to just punch in a tagger's name into Google and you got hits on Facebook and Twitter?
Yeah, I even found some photos and videos of him actually tagging one of the walls, you know, near the library.
He actually posted pictures of himself tagging online.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I printed him out, I wrote my report, gave him to the detectives, and they hooked him a couple days ago.
Oh, wow. That's good work.
Hey, good morning, guys. Got a few things to cover today. Hey, before I do, does anybody have anything?
Hey, Sarge, I had a question. Do you know the department offers training on social media?
Social media?
Yeah, Nicole just told me she basically put in a tagger's name into Google and she got hits back on Facebook and Twitter. Long story short, they were able to arrest the guy based on that information.
Twitter? Really? You know what, Mario? Leave tweeting for the birds. We're cops. Let's concentrate on real police work. Hey, I'm going to need you guys to focus down on the south end. We've been getting hit with a lot of 459s out there. We don't have a lot of good descriptions right now of the suspects, but just look out there for anybody suspicious.
Sarge, you got a minute for me?
Yes, sir, Cap. What can I help you with?
I got this complaint from a former partner of mine. He said there's been some half-naked pictures of his 13-year-old granddaughter posted on the computer. It's out there somewhere. He's pretty upset. There's some words he used like hashtag or something. I don't know all these terms, but I know it's not a good situation, so I need to get back to him as soon as possible. So could you look in that for me, please?
Yes, sir, absolutely. It's that social media stuff?
Yeah, I guess. Not too familiar with all that, but you guys can handle that.
I'll get right on it.
All right. Thank you, Sergeant.
Hey, Nicole, you got a second?
Hey, what's up, Sarge?
Remember that stuff we were talking about in briefing, that social media stuff?
Yeah.
Well, I might need your help with something.
What do you got?
The captain came by, and apparently one of his old partners, there's some half-naked pictures of his granddaughter floating around the internet. You think you could help me out with that?
Sure. Is this all you have?
Yeah.
Well, there's some good information, so I can start on what I have right here.
That would be great. Thanks.
All right, thanks.
What just took place in the scenario we just watched? Do you see any issues with the generational divide between maybe the captain and the young deputy? What kind of issue did you see?
Well, I think that because the older generation isn't necessarily familiar with social media as a whole, they're more reluctant to embrace it or feel that it's relevant at all. I think in that scenario, they kind of just dismissed it as something casual for kids and not anything that could have real life applications or law enforcement applications.
Okay, good point. Do you see organizations having some issues accepting social media into their agency, i.e. investigative tools, because you have supervisors or long-term employees that don't know anything about social media? Do you see that becoming an issue in an organization?
I think that an older generation that hasn't used technology based communications, such as now cell phones that are prevalent everywhere now, and then going into social media websites, they're not going to look at something like that as a tool for law enforcement. If you've grown up with it, you know how broad-based and far-reaching the communication is by using that. I think it's hard for someone who's never used it before to go and accept that as a law enforcement tool.
Do you see any dangers with using social media?
It could have a negative or adverse effect if you yourself post something that's not professional on a social media website. If you are doing something and you take pictures of it, or you're at an event and you might be in uniform and you post something on your webpage, it's for all public eyes to see, and that could have consequences.
Please.
And also it's given people out there another opportunity to find you, to get personal information about you. And there may be that part of our society, an element that we don't want them to find out anything about us. So you're giving, you're putting out that just another way of someone finding you and getting some personal information about you.
What are some of the other dangers or consequences of posting inappropriate things on the social media site?
If you post something on a social media site, like let's say, for example, you took a picture on your cell phone of a crime scene and you posted it inadvertently, and later on that could then ruin an investigation. And anything that you do take during work is considered evidence on a case, and you're then now posting evidence from an active investigation for everyone to view.
Do you think defense attorneys in criminal cases or plaintiffs' attorneys in civil cases are looking at what we post on our social media websites?
It's always a possibility.
And how are they using it against us?
A lot of times attorneys can use it to discredit us in criminal cases, even if we didn't post anything necessarily directly related to a case, just things that show our character. And if they can spin that into some type of negative light, they can use that against our credibility, which can damage our chances of getting a conviction.
Excellent. So we must be careful of what we post.
Well, the generations coming together, I think it's very typical of those of us that have been in law enforcement for a number of years to not readily accept criticism or training, per se, from a less tenured officer. And I think it's important to realize that there is a great untapped resource, especially when it comes to social media.
We have to adapt to new situations as they happen. We need to figure out how we're going to deal with these situations, and we need to overcome the problems that we have. And social media is just our latest problem.
There's definitely a fear involved. And how do you get started? What exactly do you do? What should your message be? There's that fear, especially amongst, I believe, senior management.
People fear what they don't understand. And so we have an obligation, especially my generation, to understand it. And we have a sworn duty to protect the people. And there's no footnote in there unless it's on the internet. We are required, we swore an oath that we would protect people wherever they might be. And we have an obligation to be wherever the people are. They are in social media and web-based communications.
Social media is a powerful tool and, in many ways, has changed the rules of law enforcement. It is a new way to communicate with the people in our communities and find out what they are saying about law enforcement.
Officers intrinsically know the crime, the community problems that are going on in the areas that they patrol. What they aren't always able to do is communicate that with the community members and gain their assistance in combating these types of problems. This offers them that opportunity.
Social media in natural disasters is a great way to notify the public, notify your community as to what is going on, resources that may be available.
If you are using social media, an agency can put that out, boom, an instant message shows up.
And one of the things that instant communications, such as Nixle, and social media, such as Facebook, Twitter, and others, what they provide us is a voice. Now, websites are great. They're a great base station where you can put a lot of information, but social media allows us to send it directly to people as well. We are able to get our message to tens of hundreds of thousands of people, and they actually really do appreciate it. One of the differences with social media is that you can have an officer now with 2 years on the department who knows far more about how to communicate in this realm than senior officers or command officers have ever even imagined. And so we really need each other. You need to empower younger officers and allow them to teach senior officers. And that's tough for us because senior guys, we think we know more than the younger guys. And on this particular topic, we'd be wrong.
And the easiest way to actually get a buy-in from the older generation is to provide them success stories with the use of social media when you're conducting your investigation and solving cases.
Today, many agencies are using social media and using it to successfully communicate with the public.
So we have a success story with social media. We began using the Nixle messaging system as our first effort and step into social media. And when we began, we had an unfortunate incident where an officer was shot and seriously injured, and it required quite a bit of blood for his recovery. And so we pushed that message out, and that was embraced by the community. They wanted to do something. They wanted to do something to help out. They used that information to organize their own blood drives throughout the community, and there was a ton of support that was garnered as a result of sharing the information via social media.
We're really proud of our Facebook account, and we have a Twitter account. We do have Nixle. We have a very innovative, I think, exuberant internet webpage, and very informational that I can also speak to that. But I think our Facebook, which gets a lot of hits every day, we're very, very careful about that. Number one, when we go out and take photographs and we're going to put something up there, we always make sure with every person in that picture that they are fine with having their photograph on Facebook on the Sheriff's Department. And secondly, we don't identify people, unless, of course, it's the sheriff or people of notoriety, people that they're already known.
Well, the Arcadia Police Department uses social media primarily for community outreach. It is a PR tool. It's a way to offer positive branding and to offer a look inside law enforcement and our agency that traditionally we didn't have before. We could attend community meetings, PTA meetings, block events, but now we reach out and with a few keystrokes we can provide that information to thousands of people, and we just didn't have that available before.
The younger officers are getting to enjoy social media and the fun associated with it. One of the challenges for them is they don't have the same career experience as the more senior officers about some of the career harm it can cause, or even some of the officer safety related issues, including towards their family safety issues, that long-term career officers have experienced or already seen go wrong.
The idea of protecting yourself and your family on social media may not seem important, but social media can have a major impact on peace officers and their family members. In this segment, we will cover family safety. Topics include how to protect yourself, how to protect your family, and the dangers of multiple accounts. We start with a true story as told by one of our subject matter experts.
A story starts off probably just like any other story. This particular case, the girl is starting to, I don't want to say get a little rebellious, but she's kind of now going against the rules, being challenging towards the parents. The parents notice the daughter had her own computer in her own room, as well as the other kids had their own computers in their own room. While just kind of doing what they should be doing, kind of being snooping, they start looking at the computer and find that there's an icon on the computer for a program that they've never installed on this computer, and it happens to be an instant messaging program. The dad decides that he's going to do his own little sting and see what's going on, so he sets up his own instant messaging with the same service. And fortunately for him, his daughter had left behind her username, her screen name, and that's all he basically needed. So added her as a friend, and basically one day he's sitting there and gets the alert that she's online. Through these chat rooms, he's able to send her a private message. And so he sends her a private message, and she responds back, and so they start talking. So he basically identifies himself as somebody who's over the age of 18 in college. She's in high school, so it would be one of those things where we tell our kids don't talk to strangers in the streets, but do we tell them don't talk to strangers on the internet? He asks her her name, and she gives her full name, asks her how old she is, and she replies. And he asks her for a picture, and he gets a picture. He asks for another picture. She sends another picture. Then he starts asking her, what high school you go to, and she tells the high school. I mean, everything that a pedophile would need, anything that a kidnapper would need was given. And I think it's just because they feel that you're behind a screen and you're safe. Well, this conversation keeps going on and on and on. And so the father basically telling his daughter, what would your parents do if they found out that we were talking? Oh, my dad would kill me. My dad's a police officer. Your dad's a police officer. So he replies back, where is he a police officer at? And she tells the stranger, where he's a police officer at. And he finally responds back, Ashley, this is your father. I think you need to get off the internet and go to bed. And next thing he knows is he hears the footsteps of her running from her room to his room and knocking on the door. And his response was, you need to go back to bed. We're going to talk about this in the morning when I cool down. The good part, though, it was caught early enough that some changes were able to be made, early, and some punishment was able to be handed down, and changes with the internet and changes with the way they and those types of things. So and the reason why I tell the story is actually this story is my story. This was my daughter who did this to me, and the worst part about this whole entire story is I teach detectives up and down the state of California how to find pedophiles and how to conduct searches on social networking sites and so forth. And my daughter knew this, and yet she never thought that I would implement those same types of those same type of techniques in my own house. So it was kind of first of all, it was a slap in my face, number one, for being a police officer. Then it was a slap in my face because she knows that I actually do this type of teaching up and down the state of California in regards to social networking. So it was kind of a double slap. So but the thing is, the lesson here is for anyone watching this is that take a look at what's going on in your own house. And the big thing is that we teach our kids safety. Don't talk to strangers. Don't tell people at school or your friends that your parents are police officers. Don't do those things. But do we seriously sit down with them and tell them what they should be doing or not doing on the internet?
Wow, what a story. What'd you think?
It was interesting. I think he hit the nail on the coffin at the end, saying that I think it's really about educating in the right way, educating your family about what's safe, what they can do, what they can't do, so that they're not victimized.
Do you think, my personal opinion is deputies, we're obviously proud of what we do, we're proud of the profession, but sometimes we forget about the personal safety and we don't think social media as a worldwide type of issue. It's in our own little world. What can we do as deputies to safeguard our families with social media? Yes.
I mean, I have a son myself, but he's still a little guy. He's not at that age yet. But when he does come to that age, I know through cable internet providers, there are certain privacy and safety measures that you can use to block certain media from being accessed. I know a lot of computers have software like that installed. You just have to know how to access it and use it. So don't be reluctant to put those blockers on your computer so that children in your home can't access, those social websites.
Did you have a comment?
Just to follow up with that is that she's correct. Parents really have to educate themselves on what is out there, what's available to their kids, but it's not just computers, because I found out myself that you've got these handheld games that have internet access. You've got cell phones now with internet access that you can't put those kind of blocks on. I put blocks on my computers, my kids' computers, but the fact is that they still have access to the internet. So you really have to, one, educate yourself and try and educate your children, and even as law enforcement officers, go out and educate parents on what their kids have access to in order to keep this kind of thing from happening. So it's education by the parents and yourself, and educating your kids on what is out there.
You bring up a great point. I think when we think of social media, we think of Facebook and Facebook only. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, as you said, sometimes we forget that, there's Xbox 360 Live, and there's other type of forums out there that we may not know our children or our family are using. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
I think parents need to take a more active role in getting into their kids' business and just turning a blind eye.
Now, how do we monitor those activities with our children? What can we do? Please.
Well, I would say one thing parents should do, or that cops should do as parents, is maybe restrict access to video games and computers and things, like keep them in areas like the living room of the house, not in their bedroom where they kind of have more privacy and we can't necessarily see what's going on. If they're playing video games only in the living room or on the computer in the living room, you can just casually walk by and kind of take a glance at what they're doing. Also, I think it helps to talk about things with kids, so in that way you can build an air of trust with them and they feel safe talking about what they're doing online and feel more comfortable showing you what they're up to.
I know Chris was embarrassed telling the story because he does teach social media, but on the other hand, it's such a great learning experience. I think so many of us go out there and tell the community and tell parents and teachers and schools all the safety precautions that they need to take regarding social media, but yet not always practice it themselves.
For Chris to have the courage, A, to tell it, but then also to acknowledge that law enforcement officers need to realize that it can happen in their own homes as well.
Most of the time, in the academy, everybody is taught to keep their personal life personal, hide their personal information, shred all your bills and paperwork, anything with information regarding your identity and your affiliation with law enforcement. Young people, children, your children, need to also be taught this information.
When you buy a home, entering into loans and deeds, public information is available through resources that we have no control over, such as the county. And that information goes to the internet, and when you post personal leads and clues on the internet about your identity, people that don't like law enforcement can find that.
So I always tell my officers every couple of months, do a Google search, use some of the other search engines that are out there, and find out where you're at. From there, you definitely can utilize these third-party companies that will remove you, but they're doing something that you can do yourself.
When you have a private social media account, it's important for us to keep it private. Only friend people that you know, family and friends. If you have a professional account, it may be different. You may be able to friend people on more of a regular basis, community members, people in the media.
We talk about, who we friend as far as with our social media accounts. Well, I have a friend of mine called me up and said that one of their lifetime friends that they've been talking back and forth with, he saw that they had added a new friend. So he clicked on this female who, he was like, oh, okay, this must be his new friend. Well, he clicked on her pictures, and next thing he sees is her pictures have her with our local gang members. Now, mind you, this person who is my friend is a police officer with me, and his friend is also a professional, but this female that he made friends with has pictures of our local gang. And I warned him that now, if any of those gang members are friends with this female, they will have access to his pictures and his profile. And if he has anything that pertains to him being a police officer, they're going to know he's a police officer. This is the safety that we're talking about. So we must be very careful when you put down on your personal account a friend. You better make sure that that is a friend, because whoever they befriend will have access to your account. There's a lot of people that want to fool us into thinking that they're police officers or even firefighters and friend us. You know, one of the mistakes that we make is our profile pictures. You know, sometimes when they fall an officer or when an officer does pass away, we will put the thin blue line as our profile picture. And what that does is that actually tells everybody we're now a cop. And all you got to do is pose as a police officer, want to be our friend, and now you have access to our profile. And educate yourself on social media. Even if you decide that you don't want to have a social media account, at least educate yourself on it, because your spouse may want to have an account, your children may want to have an account.
It's absolutely imperative that law enforcement have regular sit-downs with the family and friends, and let them know and educate them to the dangers that are out there of, you know, letting people know that they're a cop. And also, I think officers really need to back each other up, just like they do on the street. They need to do it online too, and really watch out for each other.
If you share too much on social media, you're giving away clues about your life. For example, going away on vacation. If you broadcast that you're going to be in Lake Tahoe for the next 3 weeks, you're inviting a burglary at your home.
If you're a police officer, would you go home and put a loaded gun on the table and say, you know what, I really don't understand what that is, but, you know, there it is, go ahead and play with it. Essentially, that's what you're doing with your kids in a computer. If you don't understand how to be a parent to your children when it comes to computers, how are you going to protect them? How are you going to educate them as to what's going to get them in trouble?
Do your children have more than one social media account? Do they have secret accounts that they hide from you?
Children and teenagers will have multiple accounts. They'll have the account that mom and dad will see, and then they'll have the true account that they're making their postings and to their friends and so forth. And this is why it's so important to install some of this third-party software onto your computer, because as they log on to these sites and so forth, you're going to be educated. You're going to know exactly, you know, where they're going and so forth.
In this segment, we will look at the preliminary investigation involving social media. Topics include the potential time-sensitive loss of evidence, the basic steps of investigation, and using social media for detecting crime. The subject of this next scenario is cyberbullying, which may be a new investigation for many peace officers.
Why are you doing this to me? You said what? You posted that about me? Why are you spreading all these rumors about me? I didn't do anything. Why are you doing this to me?
Mom, you got a sec?
Yeah, sure. What can I do for you? What's up?
Irene's crying.
What do you mean Irene's crying?
She's talking about posts. She's on her online video games and rumors and...
What do you mean rumors? Is somebody threatening her?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I've noticed some changes in her behavior. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. I mean, it's worse than it ever was.
Okay, we're gonna have to talk to somebody. I'm gonna talk to Irene and see what's going on, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for telling me, honey, okay?
Yeah.
Thanks, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
River City Police Department.
Yes, hi, officers. Thank you so much for coming. Come on in.
Thank you. I'm Officer Watson. This is Officer Wilson, River City Police Department. We received a call.
Nice to meet you.
What can I do for you?
Yeah, I'm just really concerned for my daughter. She's getting bullied. It started off with the online games, and then she started getting harassed on Facebook, and now she's getting these threatening emails. And I'm just really worried about her. And she's crying, and I'm just
Don't know
really
what to
upset.
do.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what kind of threats we're talking about? Have you seen any of the emails or anything?
They're saying bad things about her, rumors that aren't true about her, and I'm just really, really concerned about her.
You say they're coming through a computer. Is it a home computer or a laptop?
It's a laptop.
It's a laptop. Okay. Is your daughter home right now?
Yes, she is.
And the laptop is here as well?
Yes.
Okay. Is it possible for me to be able to talk to your daughter and maybe she can bring the laptop out and I can read through some of the emails?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Let me go get her.
Okay.
Come on in.
You know what? I think I have that cyberbullying cheat sheet. So why don't I go ahead and talk to the daughter and maybe take a look at the laptop, and then you can go ahead and talk to Mom.
Okay.
Can you talk to me a little bit about what's been going on?
Like what?
Well, your mom called and said that you've been being bullied online, maybe getting some type of threatening emails. Could you talk to me a little bit about it?
I don't really want to talk about it.
Okay. Well, your mom called and she's concerned about you. She wants you to be safe when you go to school or feel safe, and I want you to feel the same way. I'm here and I'd like to help you. Maybe you think that you could talk to me about it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. What's been going on?
This girl has been harassing me through the internet because I sold her boyfriend. And
Okay.
she's been sending me emails. She said she was gonna beat me up. She said she's gonna egg our house. She's spreading rumors about me, calling me slut and saying I'm sleeping with multiple people, and it's just ruining my reputation and losing friends.
Okay.
It's really hard.
How's she been getting into contact with you? You said emails. Has she been getting into contact with you?
Yeah, through email, text messaging, and through my Xbox.
Xbox. What about social media accounts like Facebook?
Yeah, all 4 of my social media accounts
Okay.
I've been encountered.
What type of social media accounts have you been receiving these threats on?
Through my MySpace,
Okay.
my Facebook, Tumblr, and my Twitter account. All 4.
Those are the ones that you have. Those are the only 4.
Those are the 4 that I've been.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Can you tell me who your internet service provider is?
Cablecom.
Can you tell me when you noticed this activity with your daughter starting?
It was a couple of weeks ago.
Can I see some of the emails? Can you show them to me on the laptop?
Yeah, this is the first one I received with a threat to me.
Okay. What is your email account?
It's cheerleader26 at Cablecom.
Okay. And do you have a screen name?
Yeah, it's cheerleader26.
Okay. What about her screen name? Does she have a specific screen name?
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
Yeah, I'll show you. It's right here.
Okay. What about an email address? Is that right there?
Yeah, that's her email.
Before I go, are you able to print out a list of your screen names and email accounts?
Yes.
Can you also print out the threatening emails that you've been getting?
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
What did Mom have to say?
She provided the same details that she gave us earlier, and that she was also able to give me the internet service provider that we can include in the report.
Okay. With the information that I got from the daughter and that she was able to print out the emails that she's been receiving, I think I have enough to go ahead and write up a cyberbullying report, and we'll go ahead and write that out and forward it to the detectives.
Good deal.
I appreciate you giving us a call.
Thank you so much for all your help.
Okay, this is a business card with the report number on it. Feel free to give us a call if the problem continues. We're going to go ahead and write a cyberbullying report. I'm going to go ahead and forward that to the detectives.
Okay.
I'll also let the school resource officer know about the incident, so your daughter may be getting into contact with the school resource officer as well.
Thank you so much.
If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. The report number and our non-emergency number to the police department is on there.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you again.
It was nice to meet
Thank you so much
Have a
for
good
all your
morning.
help. Thank you.
Oh, something we may not always experience. Is cyberbullying a crime?
Yes, it is a crime, and it all depends on what's being said and duration of it. You have to look at all aspects of it, but since text messaging now is so popular, I've seen people threaten just through text messages, but it's still an electronic communication, so it falls under that.
Okay. Yeah, something I just had to research yesterday because it came across my desk is the education code of 48900, which defines that cyberbullying is against the law. Although it may not be criminal ramifications, there are educational or school ramifications that could happen through someone's school. If we have something like that, who can we contact to assist us if it's maybe someone being cyberbullied by a schoolmate, as we just saw in this video? Who can we contact if it's a school issue?
School resource officer.
School resource officer. Who else?
School administration.
School administration, like a school counselor or a school principal. Okay. And I think, as in your case, although it may not be there might not be a specific criminal statute we can refer to when we're writing a crime report, there are other ancillary sections such as 653.2. In a case like this, what type of evidence should we be collecting when you're on scene, such as an incident like this?
In addition to collecting the post, either through photograph or printed email, of whatever the harassing or threatening language is, it's also important to get the usernames of both the victim and the suspect, so that way you can identify who the suspect is later on through their accounts, identify who the account holder for a certain screen name or email address is. Also, IP addresses are important to obtain, and exact website names, so that way at a later time you can go back and, through the use of search warrants, identify the exact computer that these threats were being made on.
Very good. Should we be, if we go to a scene like this, should we be touching the computer or trying to retrieve some of this information ourselves as the field deputy? Or should we leave it for maybe the investigative personnel, or as you said, maybe search warrants later?
Well, I think there's some information that we can gather as the initial investigator, such as if you could print messages out. No, I don't think we should be doing touching the computer without, having some understanding of whether or not we're going to, erase messages or erase something. But I think that there's some preliminary investigation that we could be doing, like printing out some of the threatening messages. But primarily, a lot of that's going to fall on the detective to track that message to that computer through IP addresses.
If a suspect's computer is taken, can always turn it into the regional computer forensics lab and have them further look at any evidence that's on there, and they can make a report and a disc and then give that back to the lead detective for further investigation.
Okay, on a victim's computer, generally speaking, if we have consent, we can go ahead and look at their computer, whether it's taking screenshots or printing up their email address or the messages that came through. But on a suspect's computer, it's probably something we want to leave as it is and let future investigators take care of it for computer analysis later, whether we're getting search warrants or if we have other legal reason to get into that computer.
As you know, this is a new field. Earlier, regarding, like, say, robberies, rape, the penal code is very specific. However, there is not many laws on the books pertaining to crimes of technology, which can include cyberbullying.
We need to find a way to collect the proper evidence to put the suspect behind the keyboard. We need to locate IP addresses. We need to locate, chat rooms. We need to locate friend IDs and email addresses and particular bits of identifying information, because then investigators, or if you're the investigator yourself in a smaller agency, can take that and write search warrants on the internet services providers, on the actual web-based companies that provide this type of service.
When you respond to a cyberbullying call, you need to evaluate whether or not you have a crime. You may not always have a crime, but there are other resources you can provide for the family. You can make contact with the school resource officer and have them follow up at the school.
The SRO officer is a tremendous help nowadays, especially with the kids in school and dealing with the various types of actions that happen in school.
There's a new educational code that does allow the schools to suspend students who are harassing others. So it may not be a crime, but there are other steps that can be taken.
When collecting computer-based evidence, it's important to know there are differences between a victim's computer and a suspect's computer.
we have to take into consideration that they were collecting the information from the victim's computer with the victim's consent. So what that means is that gives you the opportunity to go into that computer and collect the information you need right off the bat. However, when it comes to a suspect's computer, you don't want to touch anything on the computer unless you have access to a forensic investigator or you have some type of training when it comes to that, because every time you access a computer, technically you're changing a log. Technically, you're creating an access point. A new bit of data is being stored onto that hard drive. And when you get into court, the defense attorney is going to say, well, deputy or officer, did you manipulate the hard drive of this computer in any way, shape, or form? If you're unaware of the fact that, every time you log in, there's a key code that says a person logged in, you're going to say no, and they're going to bring that to the attention of the jury. Computers log everything you do on them. And the manipulation of a computer, whether it's just opening an email or whether it's just accessing a particular program, gets stored in there. And technically, yes, you are manipulating the computer in some way, shape, or form, and it's storing that data.
This type of time-sensitive evidence must be collected quickly so suspects, who can make bail, do not delete their social media or email accounts.
One day I was working patrol when I was contacted by an outside agency about an investigation that they were working. And long and short of it was they had arrested a suspect who had some information on their Facebook account. The detectives thought that they were going to be able to go back and do a search warrant and contact Facebook and get all the evidence that they needed. Well, when the suspect was released, she erased her Facebook accounts, she deleted her email accounts, and all that evidence was lost. So their investigation is now hampered because unless they can find her friend ID number or her ID number, they're not going to be able to get that evidence.
We had an incident where a high-profile tagger had been arrested, and within the tagging community there was a lot of chatter on social media criticizing us and making fun of us, and some of them even used bad words. And so one thing on Twitter was brought to my attention where they were using a hashtag and a certain term, and they were all these people that had a problem with us, and they were coincidentally all criminal graffiti taggers, were all using this Twitter hashtag to bash us. And so we started looking at it and noticed that lots of these taggers were using their tagger name for their Twitter handle. And then it would link back to their blogs or their social media site that had evidence of them tagging. So there was 40 or 50 of these people that we were able to start working on because they were using social media to criticize us, and it gave us information that led us to them.
Additional threats to the public are flash mobs, flash robs, and virtual mobs. These can present new challenges.
They're really catching law enforcement by surprise. And we've seen a lot of overreaction by a lot of agencies around the world to these situations. And again, when that happens, it's because those agencies aren't using social media and they don't really understand how, instead of overreacting and saying, well, let's shut down the social networks or something like that, that social media, by actually not shutting them down and keeping them open and using them, can be to their advantage because they're going to get lots more intelligence that way.
The nice part about this is that it's good old-fashioned police work. You don't have to know anything wazoo, special, or snazzy. You don't have to be a computer programmer. It's good old-fashioned police work. It's just knowing what information to ask for. Just like when you pull somebody over, you ask them for their license and their registration, proof of insurance. In the preliminary investigation stage, you're going to get their name, you're going to get their address, you're going to get the information on how to get a hold of them. But now you have to just think of the little things. Well, now I know I need their email address. If we're talking about cyberbullying and it was done online, well, how was it done online? Was there a particular website that was involved? If we're talking social media, what social media site? What are people's friends' names? It's just collecting the standard data. We're just getting another name, another address, another form of ID to provide to the detectives so they can work on their case. Yes, at the worst case scenario, you can write down the information in your notebook. But if you can actually physically print out a copy of what's been said or what's been, the communications that have gone back and forth, if you have to pull out your phone and take a picture of the screen, that is still evidence.
As you know, this is a new field. Earlier, regarding, say, robberies, rape, the penal code is very specific. However, there is not many laws on the books pertaining to crimes of technology, which can include cyberbullying.
We need to find a way to collect the proper evidence to put the suspect behind the keyboard. We need to locate IP addresses. We need to locate, chat rooms. We need to locate friend IDs and email addresses and particular bits of identifying information, because then investigators, or if you're the investigator yourself in a smaller agency, can take that and write search warrants on the internet services providers, on the actual web-based companies that provide this type of service.
When you respond to a cyberbullying call, you need to evaluate whether or not you have a crime. You may not always have a crime, but there are other resources you can provide for the family. You can make contact with the school resource officer and have them follow up at the school.
The SRO officer is a tremendous help nowadays, especially with the kids in school and dealing with the various types of actions that happen in school.
There's a new educational code that does allow the schools to suspend students who are harassing others. So it may not be a crime, but there are other steps that can be taken.
When collecting computer-based evidence, it's important to know there are differences between a victim's computer and a suspect's computer.
We have to take into consideration that they were collecting the information from the victim's computer with the victim's consent. So what that means is that gives you the opportunity to go into that computer and collect the information you need right off the bat. However, when it comes to a suspect's computer, you don't want to touch anything on the computer unless you have access to a forensic investigator or you have some type of training when it comes to that, because every time you access a computer, technically you're changing a log. Technically, you're creating an access point. A new bit of data is being stored onto that hard drive. And when you get into court, the defense attorney is going to say, well, deputy or officer, did you manipulate the hard drive of this computer in any way, shape, or form? If you're unaware of the fact that, every time you log in, there's a key code that says a person logged in, you're going to say no, and they're going to bring that to the attention of the jury. Computers log everything you do on them. And the manipulation of a computer, whether it's just opening an email or whether it's just accessing a particular program, gets stored in there. And technically, yes, you are manipulating the computer in some way, shape, or form, and it's storing that data.
This type of time-sensitive evidence must be collected quickly so suspects, who can make bail, do not delete their social media or email accounts.
One day I was working patrol when I was contacted by an outside agency about an investigation that they were working. And long and short of it was they had arrested a suspect who had some information on their Facebook account. The detectives thought that they were going to be able to go back and do a search warrant and contact Facebook and get all the evidence that they needed. Well, when the suspect was released, she erased her Facebook accounts, she deleted her email accounts, and all that evidence was lost. So their investigation is now hampered because unless they can find her friend ID number or her ID number, they're not going to be able to get that evidence.
We had an incident where a high-profile tagger had been arrested, and within the tagging community there was a lot of chatter on social media criticizing us and making fun of us, and some of them even used bad words. And so one of them was, one thing on Twitter was brought to my attention where they were using a hashtag and a certain term, and they were all these people that had a problem with us, and they were coincidentally all criminal graffiti taggers, were all using this Twitter hashtag to bash us. And so we started looking at it and noticed that lots of these taggers were using their tagger name for their Twitter handle. And then it would link back to their blogs or their social media site that had evidence of them tagging. So there was 40 or 50 of these people that we were able to start working on because they were using social media to criticize us, and it gave us information that led us to them.
Additional threats to the public are flash mobs, flash robs, and virtual mobs. These can present new challenges.
they're really catching law enforcement by surprise. And we've seen a lot of overreaction by a lot of agencies around the world to these situations. And again, when that happens, it's because those agencies aren't using social media and they don't really understand how, instead of overreacting and saying, well, let's shut down the social networks or something like that, that social media, by actually not shutting them down and keeping them open and using them, can be to their advantage, because they're going to get lots more intelligence that way.
The nice part about this is that it's good old-fashioned police work. You don't have to know anything wazoo, special, or snazzy. You don't have to be a computer programmer. It's good old-fashioned police work. It's just knowing what information to ask for. Just like when you pull somebody over, you ask them for their license and their registration, proof of insurance. In the preliminary investigation stage, you're going to get their name, you're going to get their address, you're going to get the information on how to get a hold of them. But now you have to just think of the little things. Well, now I know I need their email address. If we're talking about cyberbullying and it was done online, well, how was it done online? Was there a particular website that was involved? If we're talking social media, what social media site? What are people's friends' names? It's just collecting the standard data. We're just getting another name, another address, another form of ID to provide to the detectives so they can work on their case. Yes, at the worst case scenario, you can write down the information in your notebook. But if you can actually physically print out a copy of what's been said or what's been, the communications that have gone back and forth, if you have to pull out your phone and take a picture of the screen, that is still evidence.
There is no undo button on social media. And nowadays, if you are out at an event, there's cameras, there's HD video everywhere you look, and you are on stage 24/7.
In this segment, we will cover interacting with the public and how the speed of social media can sometimes change the equation and make policing more difficult. Remember, while carrying out your duties, you could be on camera at any time. Filming peace officers in a public place is completely legal as long as it does not obstruct officers, and simple filming does not constitute obstruction. And this next scenario starts with a call for service.
A citizen of this planet! I voted for Harry Truman!
Whoa, look at that.
I know my rights!
Cops. Cops just showed up.
Dude.
Okay, this is getting serious.
Why did you take your eyes off the T, Jimmy? I told you they were going to put signs.
Hey, this is Sue. We committed last week on 5150.
Okay. What the hell?
Hey, Sue, what's going on?
What?
What's going on?
My eyebrows fell off. They put solvent in my tea and now my eyebrows fell off. I have to die now. Don't you see I have to die?
No, Sue, we're going to get you some help, okay?
Yes, did you get past the roadblocks? We have to die. Wait, no.
We're going to get you some help, Sue.
Oh, no, those are mine.
Come
no,
on,
it's
Sue.
okay.
Come on,
those
Sue.
are my pills.
Come on,
those
Sue.
are mine. I have the right to take my pills.
Are you getting this? Are you getting this? Please tell me.
Oh,
yeah, definitely. What? Why? What? And she's screaming. What is she talking about? Listen.
okay,
You need to name this. All right. You need to name this. All right.
Okay, hold on,
Immediately.
hold on, wait.
Post and name immediately.
Okay.
You ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right. River County deputies.
Hold on. All right. Okay.
Beat crazy lady.
Oh.
Please.
Oh, you're hurting me.
Yeah, this is gonna be. Oh wow, this is viral. I swear. This is.
Is there a level above viral? Do we cap out? Do we cap out at being extra awesome?
I think awesomeness is like pretty awesome.
Viral,
It's pretty
cubed.
great. And, like.
Ooh, Google alert. River County deputies beat crazy lady. Oh no, this is.
We're gonna get you some help, Sue.
Oh, no,
Come on,
those
Sue.
are mine.
Come on, Sue. Come on,
Those
Sue.
are my pills.
Come on,
Those
Sue.
are mine. I have the right to take my pills.
3 Sam 10 to 3 Paul 5.
3 Paul 5.
What's your current status and location?
3 Paul 5, where's Clarion County Mental Health?
10-4, can you meet me at the station?
3 Paul 5, copy.
I wonder what that's all about.
He probably just wants to debrief us.
Deputies look like they did a great job, actually. Looking at that, how have cell phone cameras affected the way we do business? Sarah.
Every day. You can be recorded at any time. And everybody has a cell phone. And when you're out in the public and people in the public are allowed to videotape you, every phone has video capability. So you have to be professional at all times.
it's important that we're always professional, whether we're videotaped or not. And as long as you're professional and you're doing your job and how you were trained to do it, then there's no issues with it. It's when we're not professional, and it becomes an embarrassment to the department. But as long as you're professional and do as you were taught and trained, then it's not an issue whether they're taping you.
Okay, good point. Has anyone ever been videotaped where that incident has shown up on a social media website such as YouTube?
Well, yes. I was at a school event once representing the department. There were several other organizations there, and we were just kind of standing around at our individual booths. And one of the students came up to me, and I noticed he had a clipboard in his hand and what may have been a mic. And he came up and he started asking me questions about some prison organization, and he wanted me to comment on it. And as he was talking, I saw at a distance that someone was videotaping me. And basically, I knew then that they were taping me and recording this. And essentially, I said one line to him, basically saying that sounds positive, and that was about it. And then I got a call from someone maybe a couple weeks later saying, "Hey, do you know you're in a YouTube video?" And I look it up, and there I was. But he caught me off guard and asked me about an organization that I wasn't familiar with, and I wasn't sure what he wanted me to say, but I gave him a very generic comment, and that was it.
As we saw in the video, the deputies did nothing wrong, correct?
Correct.
Okay, can you all see how it can turn into some negative perception or negative public perception based on how it's edited by the actual videographer or the person taking the cell phone camera?
I think it's always a challenge for police officers to remain in a positive light in the public eye, and just from the scenario, the way that they had labeled the clip, that they were beating on this lady, it's, obviously it's highly misconstrued, but it's going to be an attention grabber and people are going to click on it, and then once they see, what the reality is, they will see that obviously she wasn't harmed in any way. But it's always a challenge, and it's always a battle to try to maintain in a good positive light. So, but it is public, view of how we behave every day, and so I think it's important for us to reach out to the community and to continue with crime prevention and going affairs and remain in that positive light.
Very, very well said. And I think the moral of this is if we just, as I think all of you had said, is if we remain professional, do our jobs properly, follow department policy, then no matter how that plays out, we're going to be okay. And people will have that positive image of us in law enforcement. Would you agree?
The general public is now armed with video cameras, and they think every peace officer is a public affairs officer who is ready and willing to make a statement and be recorded at any time. The bottom line, don't do or say anything you don't want to see on the evening news.
No, the officers on this case did nothing wrong, but it was a good example of how innocent or proper police work can be taken out of context. Clearly on the negative aspects, the posting of the video and just the partial posting of the video could be depicted as negative, and probably would be depicted as negative. The positive side was the data mining, the notification, and the sergeant receiving through the Google alert the immediacy of the information, and so that they could then respond to that, find out what was going on and respond to it.
An agency, an individual that is an investigator should be actively listening on social media platforms. And you can set up keyword searches or searches for certain phrases to follow and learn information and things that are being said about your agency, your community, your city.
Nowadays, there are many applications, both for your computer and your phone, that provide news feeds, and you do have the ability to follow these news feeds and be alerted when something regarding your agency is posted online.
Where we seem to be running into a big problem as a law enforcement family is understanding that no matter where we go, no matter what we do, we're being videotaped, we're being recorded, we're being watched, and we're being posted. It's hard to inform the general public, but there's no such thing as a good-looking use of force. It never looks good when you have to use force to do your duties. And people are very quick to criticize you without knowing the facts and the details, without knowing what the backstory is. It's really simple. You just be professional. You just do your job to the best of your abilities. You do what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it, and you're fine.
No matter what the circumstances, if you act professionally, these videos are less likely to go viral. Now, let's turn to ethics and social media.
You would never want to do anything that would put your department or yourself in a bad light. As a peace officer, we're always held to a higher standard, and we need to be professional at all times.
It's not can you do it, it's should you do it. So just because there's no policy or law that prohibits it doesn't mean it's a good idea.
A department may issue you a telephone, whereas you have your personal telephone. What if you were to respond to a crime scene and you used a department phone to take pictures? Not a problem. But at the same vein, you used your own personal cell phone to take pictures of a crime scene and you send it to one of your friends or another colleague or another officer. Well, did you realize that the use of your own personal cell phone not only may violate your department's rules and regulations, but also can jeopardize the further investigation of the case, and your phone will probably be subject to discovery and taken away.
When digital media hits the internet, it is never really gone. It is always out there on some computer somewhere. And somewhere, somehow, one of these computers is making a copy of everything that's out there on the internet. Take Wayback Machine, for instance. They make screen copies of everything that's out there. They preserve content and data. You think, oh, I did this and it was so long ago. It was just something that I did for a short amount of time, not knowing that some computer and somebody's desk went and archived your webpage, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, look at that. I haven't seen that, since I was 16, 17 years old, and all of a sudden there it is again right in front of you. Things don't disappear once they hit the internet.
Social media must be used with common sense because of how it can affect careers.
Social media can affect your career both in a positive and a negative aspect. In a positive aspect, it allows you to network with individuals, groups, other professional organizations, to educate yourself, to share information. On the negative aspect, everything you put out there has your name attached to it. So if you put something out there that is inappropriate, against policy, you will be held to answer.
A New York officer had a MySpace account, and he had made some postings on there in regards to he needed to watch the movie Training Day to learn some police tactics. He also, in regards to his mood, had mentioned his mood to be something like temperamental, basically. Well, he had made an arrest, and his arrest was a very good arrest. Everything was the way it should be. But when it went to court, the defense attorney had his MySpace page up and was basically discrediting the officer's, his character. He discredited the officer so badly that the felony that his client had been charged with was dropped down to a misdemeanor, and subsequently the suspect only was convicted of that misdemeanor. And all of this dealt with his MySpace postings.
Back in the day, people would say, Big Brother. Big Brother's watching. And Big Brother was the big, bad government. Well, Big Brother now, it's changed. Big Brother is everyone else. It's everyone else watching the government.
In this segment, we will examine online officer safety, the use and misuse of social media, and the importance of protecting our fellow officers and ourselves. Social media must be used with common sense because it can affect careers and personal safety.
One time again, man. They got us again. Jeez. Same.
Didn't we stop these guys last week for loud music?
Yeah, we've stopped these guys multiple times. Today, they're getting a ticket. You know what? I'm sick of. You know what? I'm tired of this, man. You know what? This be cool. I got this, okay? You trust me?
Yeah, I don't know better than
you. Trust me though. I got this. Be cool, all right? Pig. mistakes. Be cool.
River City Police Department. Turn down the music. Turn the music down. Let me see your license, registration, proof of insurance.
What'd you pull me over for, officer?
Let me have your information. I'll get to that.
Let's give it to him, man. It's cool.
Remember last week when I stopped you for the same thing? I gave you a warning.
No, that was tinted windows. Do you remember?
I do remember. Last week it was Justin Bieber you were bumping.
Yeah, whatever. You wish you can jam some music like this.
Just calm down, man. I got this. Just calm down.
I'm tired of getting pulled over. See how he was trying to get smart?
Justin Bieber, man. That's crazy, man.
See how he's trying to get smart?
What's wrong with Justin Bieber? All right, well, look. Just calm down. I'm taping this, all right? Just be quiet, right? It's cool, man. It's cool. You know what? I'm just gonna... Just trust me, okay? Trust me. I got this.
What are you gonna do?
You'll see, man. You're gonna like this. They're idiots. They don't know what the hell's going on, man. They're crazy.
I think, what is it, Jay Wilson?
All right, just be cool, man. Just be cool. Be cool.
Okay, I cited you for having the music too loud where I could hear it in excess of 50 feet. You're gonna have to sign your citation. By signing here, you're not admitting guilt. You're just promising to appear on this court on this date. Do you understand?
No.
Sign right here.
It's cool, man. Just sign it. Just sign it. Sorry.
Jay Wilson? What does the J stand for?
It's on the citation.
But it just says J.
It's all right. Just sign it, man.
What's your badge number?
It's on the citation. There's your license, registration.
Yeah.
Here's your ticket.
You have nothing else better to do, huh?
Have a great day.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna have a great day.
We're good, man. We're good. We got it. Hey, man, check these rims out, man. You need to get some new rims for your car, man. Your car's ugly. You need all the help you can get on that car.
How am I supposed to get rims for my ride if I gotta pay off this ticket? This is the third ticket, which means it's probably gonna be double the amount of what I gotta pay from the last ticket.
Let me see that ticket real quick. Do you remember when I told you I was recording him? Remember I told you to be cool? Check this out. What's his name?
Wilson, Jay Wilson. Remember?
Yeah. Look this guy up real quick.
And if I ever get an opportunity to run into that dude on plain clothes, I think I'm just gonna jack him up. He's lucky he's wearing a uniform.
Let me see. I think that's his family. You know what, man? I think that's him. That's him.
That's not him.
Look, that's him. That's his wife, and that's his daughter. Bang.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that. Him and his little partner. Look at that.
Oh, yeah. He looks thinner on the other page, though.
Look, that's him and his partner. Let's look up his partner. What's his partner's name?
I think it was Watson.
Watson or Watson? Watson. Okay, let me look him up real quick. Nah, man. He has everything blocked. He doesn't have anything on the internet.
Go back to Wilson's page.
All right, we'll stick with Wilson. We have all his information. Yeah, you know what? It's time for us to go pay him a visit. It's time for us to get paid back. It's time for us to harass him and his family so he can see how it feels. We'll have a little fun. You want to do this?
Cool.
You're not scared?
Nope. This time you drive.
All right. Look, this is the house right here, man. This is the one. This is the one. I'm telling you, this is it. I know it is.
Not the same color. I think it's a different color.
You weren't looking at the... What color was it?
I think it was the house up the street.
Look, man, you see that ugly plant right there? It's the same exact cactus right there. That was in the picture. You saw it. This is the house right here. I'm telling you.
So. If we go down that street over there, we'll do...
Look. What did I tell you, man? Look it. That's him right there. That's his daughter, and that's his wife. What'd I tell you?
Oh, yeah.
Man. You know what time it is, right?
Yeah.
It's time for payback.
Scary. Is that a far-fetched scenario? Is that something that can happen to one of us?
Absolutely, it could happen to one of us with all the information that the public has access to, including your home records, stuff like that. Yeah, of course it's a real scenario.
Has anyone in here ever looked at themselves or looked themselves up online on a search engine? You're shaking your head. What have you done?
Just something as basic as running my name in Google. It comes back with a photo of my house, my home address, family members' names, their address, all sorts of things. Anyone could find me fairly easily.
What can we do as peace officers to try to get our information off the internet?
Don't sign up for as many things. Try to limit what gets posted, and try, if you do have your own social media, blog or website, or if you have a Facebook or a MySpace or anything like that, put your account settings on private, so it's not open to the public and people can't access it.
I think what we saw in this scenario is you had the one officer who didn't have his information private, and he was easily accessible, where the partner did, and they couldn't find him, so obviously they targeted the person that they can find. Is there anything that besides that, once we find some information online, is there anything that we can do to try to get information off that specific website or those specific websites?
Yeah, by law, most of the websites have to have an opt-out requirement, meaning that if you send them something, usually an email or some type of letter stating that you don't want your information on there, they're required to honor that and take your information off.
Okay, very good. So looking at the websites to see if there's some opt-in or opt-out information, obviously. Now, how important is it for us to follow up on that? And what I mean by that is, once they take the information off, is it going to be off forever? Or is there a chance it can come back on?
Well, there's always a chance that it can come back on. It's an ongoing effort keeping your personal information from going public. Because there's other ways out there. There's public records, but it's an ongoing thing. You have to constantly check. I'm not saying every week, but maybe every 6 months, run yourself at least once a year. Run yourself, or try to determine if you're on some of these investigative sites that are out there.
Excellent point. So again, keeping our professional and our private accounts, or keeping our work pictures out of our private accounts, is probably something that's safe to do so, right? And maybe making sure our friends and families don't do the same thing. As a reminder, a lot of these companies that post our information online have certain cycles that once they take the information off, it may come back on. So say, depending on the company, it could be 3, 6, 9, or 12 months. So it's extremely important for us to go back onto those websites every so often and make sure that our information is actually still off. And if it's not, make sure we request it again. Not only it's important for us, it's important for our families as well to make sure they do that, because as you said, all these things become viral and they become intertwined.
One officer was very careful and had privacy settings and didn't have a lot of information posted, and they weren't able to locate him, but they quickly located the second officer.
Did you ever take time to stop and think about protecting yourself online? Do you go about and you tag yourself, or do you have other friends who tag you? Do you take pictures of yourself in uniform standing next to a police car?
Law enforcement is not alone in using social media for investigations. As peace officers use the web to gather intelligence on gang members may be doing the same research on law enforcement. This is another reason to exercise caution with social media.
It is a great intelligence gathering tool for peace officers. However, it is also a great intelligence gathering tool for organized crime. We, as peace officers, collect mug books. Like I mentioned before, my father was a peace officer, and he would show me mug books that he was taking of local gang members and things of that nature, and he was building a database. Well, now, myself being a peace officer, I don't go to the flip book mug book anymore. I actually create an online database, and I keep records of all my contacts and all my pedestrian stops and things like that via computer. Just because we're looking up gang members on Facebook or on MySpace or on Twitter or thehoodup.com doesn't necessarily mean that these types of organized crime syndicates aren't doing the same thing on the same type of social networking websites. What you're doing is providing them that bit of information so they can start engineering a profile on you and your associates. They start looking at your friends lists. They start associating people that you are friends with as potential peace officers themselves.
There was a gang detective for one of the local agencies that is a friend of mine that I know had to be relocated because some gang members had found him on the internet. Just using some very simple tools that are on the internet, not just Google, but a couple of the other tools that are out there, like Spokeo and People, the gang officers had enough intelligence that these gang members had possibly compromised the officer's home address, that they were able to move the family out in time. trying to see if these gang members were actually going to show up, and they did. And two cars showed up to his house, and they were basically going to kill him and his family. Luckily, they had the operation being conducted there. They were able to conduct a sting and arrest all those gang members. But when it was all said and done, they found out that they basically located him on the internet using the services that are free to anybody to use.
I tell them if you want to, if you need to be online professionally, and a lot of people should be representing their departments professionally, keep that completely separate. Don't friend the family, don't friend the kids, don't friend the your real life friends over there, and put your personal life over here. Don't be saying you're a law enforcement officer. Don't be posting anything that identifies yourself as a law enforcement officer.
Be aware that many digital cameras record metadata along with the actual image. This metadata can include a lot of information about the photo, like the date and time it was taken, but it can also include the GPS coordinates, which geotags your photos and provides the location where the photo was taken.
You also have the possibility is if you haven't turned off the geotagging on your photos, then they can track down your home address. But even if you do, the physical appearance of the outside of your house, your car, is your license plate visible in the car you're standing next to? All of these things, with very little effort, could lead the suspects to your husband or wife, to your kids, to their school, to other family members. Some officers will do is they'll provide great protections within their own social media site, but their partner is taking their photo and geotagging their photo and IDing their photo, and so they're dragging their partner into their mistakes.
Officers do have First Amendment rights, the right to free speech, just like everyone else. But the question is, how far to go on social media?
I think one of the arguments that we will hear is that we all have, deputies, officers, all have First Amendment rights. We can say whatever we want. We have that right, that ability. Well, of course you do. But now you really have to temper that right with the safety of yourself and the safety of your family. Is what you're putting out there going to come back and haunt you?
One thing we forget about, I believe, or we don't put enough attention on, is officer safety and caring for each other in the social media realm and through communications. And we want to make sure that we put focus on that. And so that if our officers, we know our officers are communicating on these social media platforms, that we offer them training, guidance, and we look out for each other when we see that someone has made a mistake or done something inappropriate.
In this segment, we will cover the follow-up investigation. Once the evidence is collected, it's just a standard investigation. The only difference is the crime was committed online and not on the street. We will also cover finding an IP address and locating email headers. Let's get started with another true story.
It was a Sunday, and I was on a day off, and I got a phone call at home from one of our night watch detectives. And he told me that he had a case of an abducted teenage girl. I believe she was 16 at the time. And what had happened is a pimp from San Francisco had met this girl online on MySpace, began talking to her, sending her messages. They formed sort of a little online relationship, and he had made arrangements to pick her up on a Friday night and take her out to dinner and go do some dancing. He ended up coming down and picking her up at her home, and he took her out to dinner, and they went out to a nightclub, and at the end of the night, they went to get back in the car to go home, and he started beating her up, hit her in the face a couple times, and promptly told her that she now works for him and that she wouldn't be going home. We got lucky because our victim told her brother about this gentleman and how she met him, and gave him some brief information that she was going out with him. And that was really the clue that set the whole thing off for us. The night watch detective, all he had to go on was one single message that she sent to her brother through MySpace that said, "Help me, I've been taken against my will. I don't know where I am. I need help." They brought that message into the police department, and the night watch detective got a hold of me, and the only thing they had to go off of was the friend ID number from that MySpace account. All they had to do was give me that number, and I was able to do an exigent circumstances warrant to MySpace after hours. And they pulled all the information from the account, and within 15, 20 minutes, I had a complete list of everything I needed to be able to work that account. Using the IP information off that warrant, I did another exigent circumstances request to the IP provider. And through that, unfortunately, their system was down. And the lady tells me that the only thing she can give me is the name of the company that the IP address belongs to. Again, unfortunately, the only information we had was some generic name of an LLC holding company, which basically was not in the phone book. We didn't have any additional information, no phone numbers, no addresses. I took that name of the corporation and plugged it into Google, and probably got about 10 or 15 matches that came back. We had a Subway and a McDonald's, and probably halfway down on the list, there was a name of a hotel. Because I had the suspect's MySpace information, I was able to look at his page, and I determined what he was driving. I called the hotel, spoke with the lady at the front counter. I started explaining what the car looked like to her. She stopped me mid-sentence and said, "It's right in front of me. I'm staring at that car. It is the ugliest thing I have ever seen." Based off of that information, I called the local police department, explained to them who I was, what case I was working, and what I had. And I had asked for 2 units to go over to the hotel to find out which room this person was in and go in and detain everybody in there. Within 10-15 minutes, I got a call back from one of the sergeants that was in the field at this hotel saying that they have the car in custody, that they have a suspect in custody, and they have my possible victim in custody. The sergeant also explained to me that without a positive identification, he was unable to detain those people any further. Again, going back to the suspect's MySpace page, I was able to pick out tattoos that he had, which he so blatantly posted all over the place, and relay those tattoos to the field sergeant, who then identified him. The entire process took me roughly an hour and a half, and I was contacted on the 3rd day of the investigation.
What a phenomenal piece of police work there, I think. Let me ask this, how can we use social media accounts to further assist us in solving cases?
Well, in the scenario that he gave, he was able to make positive identification based off the photos that were posted on the suspect's MySpace page, such as the tattoos. He was also able to use, I don't know if he used like an IP address or whatever it was, the link from the MySpace via the victim's message that she sent to the brother, which was able to link a location through maybe a cell phone provider, you know, the company through the towers or whatever, however they make those identifications. But there's definitely ways using technology to enable to track. I think we were mentioning this earlier, the global tracking system that you're talking about, almost like GPS, that's imprinted on cell phones that, you know, cell towers pick up once you move or drive around. And by utilizing all that, he was able to very rapidly locate his victim. But had she not sent that one last message, I don't know if he would have been able to find her.
Very good point. Why is it important to use this resource like social media early on in an investigation?
I think the social media can be important, as important at times as some of the systems we use, such as Argus. In identifying somebody, maybe finding out if they're a gang member, who their associates are, their friends. A lot of times you can get all of that information off of social media, along with where they're at, what they're doing, and what activities they're into. Because people do post things like, hey, I'm at this place doing this thing, and I'm with so-and-so. So a lot of times that's awesome info. That's information that sometimes takes weeks to get into a law enforcement system, and we have access to it up to the minute. Whereas we can say, hey, 30 minutes ago, we know that so-and-so was down at the bowling alley or wherever, because they put it right there on their page.
Very good point. And would you say, or would you agree with me, that not only is it a good tool when you're investigating a case, but what about how could it benefit the prosecution in prosecuting a case?
I think that information then becomes your evidence. And that's, I think, the best way to utilize that by turning it in. Then you have date timestamp records of, you know, locations and activity as it gets posted to social websites.
Okay, very good. What about maybe a gang prosecution type case? If we're looking or trying to say that this person is a gang member or maybe hangs out with gang members, is it possible that we could find pictures or associated people or people associated with this suspect? Is that maybe a tool that we can use or a resource that we can use?
Yes.
The benefits of using social media early on in an investigation is, generally speaking, it's free. The information that you're going to get, you can get it a lot quicker than your conventional methods, and it's just another tool in our toolbox.
The line, what happens in Vegas stays on Facebook or stays on Twitter and all of that. There's always a digital trail. And so he was, applying good old-fashioned detective work, but the digital trail just doesn't lie.
Once the crime has been committed, the standards provided by Post when it comes to basic investigations, intermediate investigations, advanced investigations still apply. You just have to adapt them a little bit to the web-based communication component.
5 years ago, if a parent came into the police station and said, I want to report my son or daughter missing, we would take a missing persons report, and I don't want to say it's a generic report, but it has a lot of information. But on that report, nowhere does it say, do they have a social media account? These are questions that we now have to start asking ourselves, because if you have a runaway, you have a kidnapping, whatever it may be, those little things that we didn't ask in the past are things that can lead us to help solve our crime. So a prime example is if you have a runaway and they have a social media site, well, you know what? People want to be on their social media site, and they're going to stay in constant communication with their friends or their followers. So that could help us to solve the case. There's actually many agencies that will work with you when we need to know someone's cell phone tracking. We can sometimes call up the Secret Service, and they'll work closely with us. So you should get to know, as a detective or even as an officer, you should get to know the resources that are available in your region.
For investigations, social media will not replace traditional law enforcement databases, but it can be an additional resource.
Well, with traditional criminal databases and resources that we have available to us as investigators, social media is free. We're already paying for the internet usage, and we have ready access at our fingertips with just a few keystrokes of entering a particular person's name or a location or a phrase or a tagline.
Well, based on this new type of technology and this new type of form of communication, peace officers are probably sitting there thinking, okay, I've gathered the IP addresses, I've gathered this email address, I've gathered friend IDs, and they're probably feeling a little overwhelmed on what to do with all this information now. Well, the best thing you can do if you don't really know where to go next is to utilize the resources that are currently available. The International Association of Chiefs of Police has a center for social media online where you can access different types of investigative techniques for social media, as well as how to use social media from a public information standpoint. In addition to that, you can contact the Peace Officer Standards and Training for California Post, and check their online resource, check their video library, and see if there's any post-certified training available in your area. There are several classes that are currently available, for this type of thing. Not only that, there's various different types of organizations out there that'll assist peace officers with their investigations when it comes to social media. The High Tech Criminal Investigators Association is one. You also have a company called Search. They're a company that actually does free training for peace officers for web-based communications and things like that. And not only that, you can contact federal agencies. The United States Secret Service has a great forensic research center for law enforcement agencies throughout the continental United States.
IP addresses can provide critical information for an investigation. The following two segments are step-by-step instructions for locating IP addresses and email headers.
This is a standard search warrant results from Google on a Gmail account. And it shows us on this date and this time. It's very important to note the hours, the minutes, and the seconds, as well as the time zone in which the IP address was recorded. It shows us that the event was a logout, so they logged out of their email account, and it recorded this IP address from the service provider. All we have to do is select the IP address and copy it, either by using the mouse or hitting copy command. We're going to go to just a basic website called ARIN.net, which is the American Registry for Internet Numbers. We're going to select the field, or search field, and we're going to paste the IP address number in there, conduct a search, and the results show us that this IP address belongs to T-Mobile USA. You can scroll down the list here and it'll show you the administrator contact, the address in which they need to be contacted, the phone number, email address. It's important to remember when printing out emails for evidence purposes or tracking purposes to show the header of the email. If you take a standard email like this, most applications default to not showing the header or a standard view from what you see here. If you go into usually a view setting, every application is different, you can tell it to show the header information contained in the email. This information is extremely important because it contains all tracking and log information of where that email came from, which servers and routers it went through to reach its destination. In this email here, you can see that it was sent from these servers, and here's the IP address from where it came from.
So we've seen several videos where social media and social media investigative techniques have been used to successfully solve crimes. And when we do that, it's exciting. And the natural thing is that we want to share that information with the media. But we have to remember that we don't want to do that because we're going to harm the investigative method, not only for this time, but in the future.
When you have solved a crime with the help of social media and you are approached by the news media and they want to know just how the crime was solved, remember, do not compromise the investigative process. Just say to the news media, it was solved using department resources, or we used advanced technology as well as good police work. We've come to the end of our training course, and on behalf of the Commission on Peace Officers Standards and Training, we would like to thank you for your participation. This course is designed to be facilitated in a group setting. Before conducting a group training session, you should review and become familiar with the material in this program. Open and print the facilitator guide and go through the material yourself before putting the course on for others. As the facilitator, your job is to engage your students in constructive, free-flowing discussion on the key learning points in this training topic, stimulate critical thinking and situational awareness in the group by viewing the scenarios, expert interviews, and discussion videos. Questions and activities are provided to promote group interaction and discussion on the training topic. Customize the learning experience by applying your agency policy and procedures to the training concepts. Segments in this program accommodate shorter training periods, such as during roll call training sessions. Track your students' progress through the entire program. Once the students have successfully completed the program, submit your training roster to post for CPT credit. Following this plan will help to create an environment for the debate of ideas, sharing of wisdom based on experience, and encourage a greater understanding of local policies and procedures. We wish you and your agency all the best in successfully implementing this program. This course is designed to be facilitated in a group setting. However, when that is not possible, here are some instructions for getting the most out of this training program so that you may receive continuing professional training or CPT credit. Let your supervisor know that you will be viewing the program. This will give them some time to review the course themselves and be prepared to discuss it with you later on. Open and print the student workbook so you can take notes and fill out responses to the questions and activities. Think about how the training concepts presented apply to your agency policy and procedures. You may view the scenarios, expert interviews, and discussion videos several times to assist you in providing responses. Keep track of your progress as you complete segments in the course. When you have finished the entire program, inform your supervisor that you would like to review the course with them. Send them your completed student workbook prior to meetings so that they have a chance to review your responses. Your supervisor may require additional work or feedback from you before giving CPT credit. It is up to their discretion to determine whether you have adequately completed the course. Following these instructions will give you the best opportunity not only to receive CPT credit, but to grasp the training concepts, benefit from the experience of others, and apply the training and experience to your local policy and procedures. We wish you and your agency all the best in successfully completing this course.